Yet another fire at the former Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital that appears to have been deliberately set. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Local fire officials will meet with the province to discuss more security at the former LPH building.
That's after crews responded this morning to a blaze at the abandoned building, the third since May. Jaden Billick has more.
Fire crews were called to the former Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital early Wednesday morning for yet another fire. It's the third blaze there since May, with clear damage on some of the windows of the building. Division Chief of Fire Prevention Kevin Anderson says, as these similar incidents are becoming more of a problem, they're meeting with the province next week to discuss an increase in security of the vacant building due to growing safety concerns.
It's a concern because the building is full of asbestos, so it's not safe to go in there, but people are going in and not thinking about that. So, it is private property. People should not be trespassing or entering the building. So, we don't want to have to do a rescue or somebody be injured. Fortunately, no one has been injured in these past fires, but you never know what's going to happen in the future. So.
Anderson believes these fires are caused by offending individuals, avoiding security, sneaking in through the boarded windows, and collecting any combustible objects left behind that they can find. In addition to not only fires, first responders have been notified of multiple mischief incidents related to general curiosity of the large unused building.
With being such a large building and so many entry points, the doors are all secured, windows are, but people can pry open plywood and get into it. So an increased security would just, hopefully people not to go in because they know people are watching, right? But as soon as the security goes away, that's their chance to get in. So it's such a large building, so it's pretty hard to keep it secure, but they're going to work at it.
Officials say the LPH is not a safe environment to go into, and in order to prevent injury, they're urging the public to stay away. Jaden Billick, TBT News.
Arson charges have been laid in connection to yesterday's fire on Bethune Street. Thunder Bay police arrested a 30-year-old from Thunder Bay who was seen leaving the area around the time of the blaze. The accused appeared in court today and now faces arson and break-and-enter charges. They remain in custody with a future court date. This was the second fire at that abandoned building since 2022, though there's no indication that they're connected.
Artificial intelligence video software is proving to be beneficial for the Thunder Bay Police Service.
Policies and procedures around the use of Briefcam were implemented in December, and feedback from investigators has been very positive. Nnab reports.
Briefcam is a program that uses AI to analyze video footage to identify inputs, such as vehicles, clothing, or direction of travel. Since implementing this software in December, the Thunder Bay Police Service have used it for 3 sudden death investigations and say it has been a great asset.
The investigative process is still entirely dependent upon a trained investigator who then goes and with human eyes and an investigative mind reviews the footage and takes what is evidentiary out of that. So the real benefit to the service and to the investigation is it expedites investigations.
There are currently 4 trained members of the service who are approved to use Briefcam, and there is a process in which Detective Inspector Jeremy Pearson or his designate's approval is required for the software to be used.
We use the program only when there's a public interest that outweighs, a privacy interest. We've been pretty rigorous in terms of taking hardline steps, such as simply stating and sticking to the fact that we don't use facial recognition software. We also use Briefcam only for footage that we have already obtained lawfully in the course of investigation. Briefcam isn't a program that is being used to monitor live video.
The Briefcam is very dependent on the quality of product that is inputted, so Detective Inspector Pearson says low-quality surveillance video can cause some challenges.
The program still has its value, of course, and we just have to, again, be rigorous in terms of if there is video that is of poor quality and the program doesn't find an object or a person, we will have to review and ensure that the quality of the video didn't impact the effectiveness of the program.
When and if Briefcam is used for an investigation is completely dependent on each individual case, and Pearson says the key for them as investigators is to assess when this tool will be of benefit and expedite an investigation. Nnab, TBT News.
Some stunning news from the Fort Frances area. The 5-mile bridge on Rainy Lake has collapsed. These dramatic pictures are being shared online, showing the bridge falling on top of the railway tracks on the Canadian side of the water. It's expected that many people with boats docked in the Fort Frances Marina may not be able to go under the bridge. It's unclear at this time whether there were any injuries or what caused the collapse.
Parole has been granted for Lindsay Coy. The Fort Frances nurse went before the parole board today and will be released next month. She was sentenced in January to 2 years in prison for the 2015 death of her patient, Hermina Fletcher. The Fort Frances Times reports that Coyle will be released on parole this September, less than 9 months into her sentence. She'll be allowed to serve the remaining time from her home in Fort Frances with conditions. Coyle pled guilty to criminal negligence causing death. She altered records to increase Fletcher's morphine dose from 5 milligrams to 10 in order to steal the excess medication. But Coyle didn't change the record back, and the 76-year-old Fletcher died after receiving a double dose.
Nnab First Nation has now been under a state of emergency for nearly 3 months.
It was called due to a number of community safety factors, including violence and addictions issues. Leadership says neither the province nor the federal government have done enough to support them. Justin Hardy has been following the story and brings us the details.
The federal government hasn't reached out once.
Nnab Chief Sherry Taylor says higher levels of government haven't stepped up to help the community, which has been under a state of emergency since May 15th. That was called in response to an increase in violence and drug and alcohol-related crime, as well as failing road infrastructure, particularly the bridge into the community. Patty Haidu, Minister of Indigenous Services, was unavailable for interview, but her press secretary provided a written statement that said the federal government stands ready to support Nnab now and into the future, and has contributed $600,000 for peacekeeping during this crisis, as well as a $500 million investment to Nanchu's life. The statement goes on to say that a July 18th meeting to discuss this was cancelled upon the community's request. Taylor says the community was able to secure a meeting with the province, but she had concerns as the person sent by Ontario was an acting assistant deputy minister.
So you see, there's people at this table that were not decision makers at all. They were more or less technical people. And we met with them, and I provided a plan. I provided things that we needed to get done right away for the safety of our community, a safety of our children that crossed that bridge, that used that bridge on a daily basis. I gave them a plan. I haven't heard nothing back.
MPP Greg Rickford, the Ontario Minister of Indigenous Affairs and First Nations Economic Reconciliation, says the officials in attendance for the meeting were decision makers and that he would follow up with the chief personally.
We were there for the community and the trials and tribulations that they may be going through. We see the opportunity in the Greenstone region, and we want to make sure that their young people have every opportunity to take advantage of that. That's the message I sent to Chief Taylor when we were there, but I'll be meeting with Chief Taylor. I'm a decision maker. She's a decision maker. We'll make decisions.
The federal government says it will continue to work with the province to address policing and road access to the community. There isn't a public date set yet for the follow-up with either levels of government. In the meantime, the community remains in crisis. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Alvin Fiddler comfortably held on to his position as Anishinaabe Aski Nation Grand Chief during today's election. Fiddler had more than twice as many votes as the runner-up. Nan's 3 deputy Grand Chief positions were acclaimed.
Your Grand Chief, as elected, is Alvin Fiddler.
The election was held during the 42nd annual Kiwewin Conference in Constance Lake First Nation. Alvin Fiddler was once again declared Grand Chief following a vote of the chiefs in attendance. Of the 40 registered voters, Fiddler received 25 votes. Pauline Panina Mickelson of Sachigo Lake First Nation came in second with 10. Fiddler says he's thankful to hold on to the role of Grand Chief and looks forward to continuing to work with Nan communities.
To work as a team. And I've always said that the only way that we can function effectively is if we do it together. If we live up to those ideals that were set by our elders many years ago when they created this organization, the Nnab Nation. On the flag you will see 3 words: unity, strength, and success. And that's the only way that we can move forward. So miigwech, thank you so much for this opportunity.
The 3 deputy Grand Chiefs were acclaimed: Annabeti Ashni Penescum from Martin Falls, Mike Medadawabin of Fort Albany, and Arrowland's Bobby A. Narcisse.
A Fort Frances man has been ordered to pay out maximum damages to Borderland Pride for social media comments made earlier this year. The Ontario Small Claims Court recently ordered Luke Kotson to pay out $35,000 in damages plus costs. That's for comments made on a social media post advertising a joint event with the Fort Frances Lakers in March. The court found the comments to be defamatory and hateful, referring to the plaintiffs as pedophiles and predators. The plaintiffs included Borderland Pride, its co-chairs, and local lawyer Douglas Judson and Peter Howie. $35,000 is the highest amount that can be awarded in small claims court.
We need to push back on this type of attack with force, and we need to impose consequences. And so, as a lawyer who does this work, that means that I'm going to start taking people's houses and their vehicles and their toys and draining their bank accounts and garnishing their wages, because no one is going to stop behaving this way until there are real consequences, until there's real financial pain that attaches to it. So we're going to keep doing that. And, hopefully the message will eventually get through that you have free expression, but that doesn't mean freedom from consequences.
Judson says he's seen an increase in hate speech against the 2S LGBTQIA+ community in their region and elsewhere. Judson's concerned that homophobic rhetoric online could inspire real-world violence, targeting pride events like the Lakers' Night Out.
An automotive industry executive recently put Ontario's electric vehicle charging system to the test and says it failed.
He embarked on a road trip through the eastern and southern parts of the province, and as Rahim Ladani explains, it was a frustrating experience.
As Ontario accelerates towards having more electric vehicles on the road, some drivers feel the infrastructure needs to speed up.
It really is just something that's always on your mind. You're watching the range of your vehicle and you're checking maps constantly.
Brian Kingston, who's the president of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, recently embarked on a family trip from Ottawa to Kincardine in his electric Chevrolet Blazer. After a local charger wasn't working, he made it to Stittsville, where only one of the two stalls were operational, and he charged up.
If you are traveling 400, 500, 600 kilometers outside of the range of your vehicle, you will need to access these public chargers, and they need to be fast public chargers.
After charging again in Belleville, he arrived in Markham to top up. This is the charging station in Markham Kingston says he came to that day, and at the time, 2 out of the 3 stalls were not working. This afternoon, as you can see behind me, crews are on site doing maintenance.
I don't want people to come away thinking, oh God, the infrastructure is bad, so I can't choose an EV yet. I think what's important to remember is that 80% of Canadians drive 50 kilometers or less a day.
A spokesperson for Natural Resources Canada says the federal government is supporting the EV push by investing $1.1 billion to support the deployment of a nationwide network of 84,500 chargers by 2029 across Canada. That would be ahead of the federal Liberals' mandate that all vehicle sales emit zero emissions by 2035.
Most of the automakers have announced that they're going to go to the NACS standard, which is essentially, let's call that the Tesla standard. And so they'll all be compatible with Tesla by probably 2025, late 2025.
Kingston's family did eventually reach Kincardine. However, they say it took 10 hours, 2 of which were spent charging their vehicle.
If you want Canadians to switch, you have to help them in that transition. And the best way to do it, particularly in these early years, is to overbuild the infrastructure.
Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
More options are coming for Thunder Bay travelers flying Porter. Beginning in October, the airline is launching a new jet service between Thunder Bay and Toronto's Pearson Airport. The new 132-seat aircraft will be operating round trips between Pearson and Thunder Bay 3 times a week. Porter says passengers can expect an elevated economy experience. It's expected to increase passenger capacity in Thunder Bay by more than 10%. Porter's Director of Communications, Brad Cicero, explains more about the new jet.
No, I think it'll be a really nice improvement to have this additional flight into Toronto Pearson. The new aircraft coming into the market is a big change for us as well in Thunder Bay. And I think people will really see a consistent level of service from what they're used to with Porter, but it will just be with the most modern and current aircraft that we have in the fleet today.
Thunder Bay Airport President Graham Ingham released a statement saying the new route enhances services for the community and offers comfort and convenience. The new route begins flying on October 16th.
All right, let's turn our attention to the weather now. Fiona, it was another hot one out there today. The temperature behind you says we just missed that 30-degree mark for the second day in a row.
Just barely, but the Humidex sure made it that far and then some. A high of 29 and a Humidex under mainly sunny skies of 33 in the city. So for the most part, we were essentially a repeat of yesterday's conditions. So if you liked the heat yesterday, you were probably thrilled by today. If you're tired of the heat and humidity, it was probably not so thrilling. So it's good and it's bad. We had calm winds for much of the day, almost non-existent most of the morning, and then it inched its way up just in the afternoon a couple times, kicked up a notch from the south-southeast, 28 kilometers per hour. Now, across the region, especially to the west, it was definitely a repeat of yesterday. Fair amount of sunshine. It's just been a little bit of fluctuation between mostly to partly sunny up in Red Lake, but just in the last hour, a little bit of extra cloud pushing its way in. But temperatures, once again, above seasonal, 27, 28 for the most part seems to be the magic number. And the Humidex at this hour is ranging from 30 in Fort Frances up to 31 in Red Lake, and even heading eastward with a little bit more sunshine in Armstrong and Greenstone, the Humidex is sitting at 32. Now, the two outliers for the most part are once again Marathon and Wawa sitting at 22 and 21 respectively. That's partially due to the winds from the southwest off the lake, keeping things a little bit cooler, but the Humidex is still making it feel like 26, so it's still a beautiful day on these portions of Lake Superior. Sault Ste. Marie added a couple of degrees just in the last hour. The heat kind of blossomed a little bit more, and the Humidex did hit 34 just in the last hour or so. Now here in the city of Thunder Bay, it's going to be another very mild night. Clear skies, a low of 15. Winds will be from the northeast, so maybe a little bit cooler winds, but very light, just 10 kilometers per hour for the most part. And as we head into the second half of the work week, temperatures are going to be cooling slightly, but they're still going to be seasonal. Remember, at this time of year, we should be seeing temperatures hitting about 23, 24 maybe. But it also comes with some rain, possibly heavy at times for both Thursday and Friday. So Thursday into Thursday night and into Friday, which is good news for folks who are finding their gardens a little bit dry and crispy. And we will begin to clear just in time for any of your weekend plans that you might have. I know the summer is starting to slowly wrap up. We've got a few big events happening this weekend and the next. And so far this weekend is actually looking like it could be pretty good for folks.
Okay, well, that is good news. Thanks a lot, Fiona. All right, well, the World Health Organization has declared Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, as a global health emergency. We told you yesterday about the number of cases rising in Toronto. Of course, that's not the worst of it. The hotspot is in Africa. We'll have details on that and more when your Wednesday News Hour continues right after the break.
It's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives.